Mike tonight. It's on the topic of self-care. It's good to see you guys. Speaking of which, actually, I left one thing back here. This question was, of course, submitted to us by you guys. And I thought it was on a topic that we don't talk about much, that a lot of people are very critical of, but that is very important. And I asked my wife, and she said that I could practice a little self-care tonight as I taught you guys, so here we go. Thanks. So, it seems there's some debate on this topic of Christianity and self-care about whether or not we're allowed to indulge in self-care, right? A lot of Christians are pretty hardcore. They're a little bit heavy metal about it all, and so they believe that if we indulge in self-care, that we are defiling ourselves, that we're not really being Christians because Jesus, after all, was always out there ministering, always doing the right things, right? And so if we give in to self-care, then we're coming up short of what Jesus wants us to do. Tim's like, eyes are darting away constantly. It's okay, Tim, look on me. Look upon the comfort. I think we should definitely start by defining what self-care means, right? Can we bring up that first definition for us? Self-care is defined as health care provided to oneself without the consultation of a medical professional by Merriam-Webster. So in other words, taking care of ourselves without maybe that doctoral insight. It's just trying to take care of the things that we physically need. We have a second definition here, which is when millennial women choose to ignore all of the tasks they need to accomplish in favor of screwing over their coworkers, doing culturally appropriative meditation rituals, and drinking LaCroix water. Next slide, there's more to this. Can also involve rubbing ungodly amounts of coconut oil over their skin and listening to Bon Iver music while planning an outing to gentrified bookstores or record shops. And, of course, that came from Urban Dictionary, the most renowned dictionary, the authority on all things in the English language. We have a very conflicting opinion, again, of what this means, right? The example given for the second one was, why did you call into work sick 15 minutes before your shift started? I was practicing self-care. Unfortunately, I feel like this is what pops into the head of Christians when we talk about self-care, is just being like absolutely unapologetically selfish, crazy people, right? Having no regard for those around us, and trying to supply our own needs in a deeply humanistic way, not seeking out Christ as our source of wholeness and happiness, right? So we want to talk about three thoughts tonight. Number one, how should I define self-care? Thought number two, what should I be looking to get out of self-care? Thought number three, when do I need to engage in self-care? And of course, thought four, it's good to see you, Andrew. Let's start with how should I define self-care? He's zoning out, so he just had to hit that one again. How should I define self-care? It's like our last week, and then we have like a game night, so I just got to hit all the familiar spots. Our definition will inform our actions. So again, this is kind of important, right? If I tell you guys that preaching God is, and then I show you guys like the Crusades in the Middle Ages, you'd be like, oh, well, it's a very different thing than what I thought it was, right? If I told you guys that sharing Christ is what, like, you have to have people like at gunpoint, you're like, you have to convert or die. Well, you're going to have a very different opinion on what that means for your life, how much you want to invest in it, whether or not you want to be part of these things, right? So when we define self-care, we need to really understand what we're laying down for ourselves and whether or not we want to be a part of it, right? So you guys gave us some really awesome definitions and examples this week on our Instagram. One of the best two definitions we got was this: doing something that I enjoy doesn't have to be productive. They define self-care as doing something they enjoy doesn't have to be productive. Love that definition. Very simple to grasp. There's a couple of our examples that fit under that category. And I think that one really hit the nail on the head for us because the examples you guys gave us were go to bed early and drink flavored coffee. It's not productive, but yeah, absolutely. It's something that should be done periodically, right? Someone else said watch Star Wars. Amen. Someone said go on long road trips. Another person said get outside with your spouse and dog. One more said playing video games. We got some hashtags for that one. Hashtag relatable, hashtag douloswhy, hashtag self-care. So if you guys are going to post that wisdom, playing video games, please refer to the previous hashtags. This first definition, guys, is the Christian who is feeling a little burnt out from work and serving, right, really hard, or trying to be an example of who they are every day, and just kind of being that point of like, I'm really tired, right? This definition is like break from the routine. This person might feel a little brain dead. They might be a little short on emotional charge, right? They might feel the need to be adventurous or introverted if that's outside of the normal for them. They aren't necessarily seeking change in their routine, but they do see the need for a break from it so that they can re-engage with their duties and responsibilities again with freshness and with as much mental capacity as they can. They're looking to try to be able to get back on the hamster wheel. Well, they're trying not to die on that hamster wheel, right? I'm not going to tell you guys that God does mandate movie days, PJs, or Minecraft in the lives of Christians, but he does command us to rest. He does tell us to rest. And this is a really important thing when we look at self-care, because what we're really striking at is the fact that we need a break. Now, how we use that break can define everything about us, right? How many of us have seen someone who goes to college and then they use their break to like work a really strenuous job and then they come back burnt out? You've seen that? Anyone else? Knew a guy who he was going to the same ministry school I was and taking 23 credits of college at the same time. So he had like 2 workloads and he was holding down like a vocation. He was like a freelance photographer on top of this. This man had no life. His name was Connor. He was a great guy, really, really sweet. He did nothing but work. And so it was really funny to watch him because he was prolific in what he did. He was a really good example of being a hard worker. But at the same time, you could definitely see where there was like gaps. Where he'd like mention a movie that came out 6 months ago, and he's like, oh, that already came out. This dude had like no feel for the world around because all he did was work. He would get up, do something else, sleep, get up, do something else. His time was really, really regimented, right? When we look at what God commanded us to do in rest, he gives us some clues about what we should be doing with this. Rest is first mentioned in the creation story, right? In Genesis chapter 2, we see God take a day of rest. We talk about the creation period being 7 days, but really all the creation took place over 6. We had an example given to us in that 7th day of resting in what was done. We see this echoed in the 10 Commandments. Do you guys know which 10 Commandment talks about rest? Please, Richie, shout it out. Sabbath, what does it say about the Sabbath? Honor the Sabbath. It says to keep it holy, right? It talks about not working on the Sabbath, to keep it in remembrance. It's not just marking a day down as like on the calendar, like this is Saturday, so that you can make sure your calendar works. He's saying that you should be taking time to actually practice the Sabbath on this day to remind yourself of what the meaning was, which was to have this rest, right? And we see this intention behind it in the words of Jesus, because again, when it's in the 10 Commandments, there seems to be God dictating to us, you must rest. Whether or not you're restful doesn't matter, but you must stay still, be still, and stop moving. And that's how the Pharisees took it, right? They took it as, if you do anything, no matter how small and no matter how lacking in strenuous nature it is, you're breaking the Sabbath. Therefore, you're disobeying God. Therefore, you're some sort of like reprobate, right? You're just this horrible, awful person. So they're putting an incredible amount of pressure on themselves to get everything done before dusk the day before so that they could celebrate Sabbath, so that they could observe Sabbath, so that they could fully rest to achieve holiness. Now, Jesus gets called out by the Pharisees. Why? Because he breaks Sabbath in their eyes. And what does he tell them? He tells them that the heart of the Sabbath was different than what they were making out to be. In Mark chapter 2, he says, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, God did not set down this rule and then create people to observe the rule because there was no one else to observe it otherwise. No, he created Sabbath for man. He created us, and he created us with a need. And then he created a precedence for us to follow to meet that need. God takes rest very seriously. At a worship conference, someone said that scientifically our bodies need about 8 hours of sleep. Can I ask real quick, how many of us get 8 hours of sleep every night? Are you rolling eyes? It feels like, you're like, ah! Like, and then there's a nap, carry the one. 8 a week? No. 8 hours a day is what we're supposed to run on. Hardly any of us get that, right? I absolutely do not. And they pointed something out. They go, well, 8 hours, if that's correct, science is correct, that's 1/3 of our day, which is 1/3 of your week, 1/3 of your month, your year. It's 1/3 of your life. It means that God created us to have 1/3 of our life be set aside to do nothing. And then in addition to that, he tacked on another 1/7 of our week to do no big tasks, not keep working a set time aside, right? And then you factor in bathroom breaks, and we get nothing done. God does not seem to be put out by the fact that we have limitations on how much we can do, but he does seem put out when we try to overachieve by working through everything. He designed us with a need, and when we don't respect that need, what happens to us? The wheels fall off, we catch fire, and we burn out. God gave us a very specific need, and he gave us a very specific command. He told us to rest in him. We see peace, we see joy, we see hope, all things tied into this rest that God gave us and he commanded us to take part in. So as Christians looking at this topic, we have to keep this in mind. God speaks on rest. He emphasizes rest. And there's need for us to rest. Now, there is a danger that lies in all this for us. We can allow ourselves to over-embrace rest, right? How many of us have taken a vacation in the last year of some sort? All right, don't raise your hands again for this next question, but I'm going to tell you guys something. A lot of us, and I'll say how many of us, but again, don't raise your hand. How many of us, though, also treat church or devotions or times with God like something that we left at home? It was one of the stressors. When we went on vacation, that was also something that we didn't add back into our routine, right? We take these vacations and we go, and part of the stress that we leave behind is God. We don't think about work. We don't think about cleaning the house. But we also don't think about making those efforts to spend time with God. We treat him like he is part of the problem. When we go after rest, we treat him like he's not the source of rest, that he's not where we're supposed to rest in, that he didn't command us to rest. No, he only wants us to work. He's always trying to make us heavy laden. He's always on top of us. Therefore, we need to distance ourselves from him like we would schoolwork, housework, or a career. Relatable? Yeah? Awesome. I'm not the only one good. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm just a big sinner. I don't know. That's an issue, guys. Self-care in the life of a Christian should include more than simply being still or being entertained. We should realize that we are not only in need of refilling maybe our social batteries or our mental batteries, but also we need to give attention to our spiritual batteries as well. Sometimes our self-care will look a little different because we're in different points of our lives, right? Or we're doing different things. I can tell you that as a pastor, it's usually not the spiritual battery that runs low quickest. The thing about having to write like 2 studies a week and answer Bible questions online and like talk with people about this stuff is that it's usually kind of in the mix for the day. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not reading, writing, or something having to do with the Bible. It's one of those career hazards. But I do get burnt out socially, and a lot of pastors do. A lot of pastors have people messaging them, emailing them, texting them, calling them, all sorts of things at all hours of the day. So when they seek rest, it's not an escape necessarily from that spiritual fatigue, but a lot of times it's an escape from the social fatigue. Or sometimes it is just busyness. Pastors can do a lot of different things in a day. I can tell you guys that I have had to change a toilet cover, preach a message, lead worship, fix things at my house, host a get-together, hang out with my kids, and help talk my wife through a situation in her life all in the same day. Wear a lot of hats, right? There's some days where you are out there like having to meet with pastors, help dig a hole for a playground equipment, set up a bunch of different things all at the same time. And so when you get to this point of rest, it's not really a whole lot of different things converging. It's just physical exhaustion. It's physical exhaustion setting in, right? So again, pastors can be socially burnt to a crisp. They can keep long and unorthodox hours, so their mental capacity becomes spent, right? So really a lot of pastors need just like quiet and distance. They need distance from the social, and they just need quiet so they can just sit down and just be, right? For some of us, we're working remotely or inside all day. That is our career field. That's our profession, right? And it's quite the opposite. We might need outdoor time. We might need to hang out with people that we love. We may even need some spiritual encouragement because we've been working with the world or having to deal with the world all week. So for us, the need is different. We just need some escape. Not from having people around, but we need to escape to hang out with the right people and to have the right voices in our ears, not the wrong ones, and to get away from the pressure of life, but to also get to engage in something that we love, get to enjoy a hobby, get to enjoy venturing, right? The needs in our lives will differ based on who we are. The needs in our lives will differ based on what point in our life, what season of life we're in. The things in our lives will change from moment to moment, hour to hour, day to day, year to year. The needs are different, but we need to be conscious of the fact that just because our needs are going to be mental or physical, they're also spiritual. And we really need to understand that this thought leads us to a second definition that was given. It leads us to a realization that self-care can also fall under a different category. The second definition is this: when you care enough about yourself to put away self-loathing. This is what somebody said self-care is. When you care enough about yourself to put away self-loathing. And some of what you guys told us under the activities of self-care fell under this. Somebody said hug people and pet fluffy animals. That's their version of self-care. Someone else said this. Can we bring it up? Make Google Translate read the phrase, "You're a good boy," aloud to me. Big emo vibes. These voices cause us to consider the fact that this also crosses over into a little bit of self-help. No, I'm sorry, can you hit that again? So whoever entered that, there you go, there's your daily dose. This crosses over into self-help. Some of us struggle with who we are or what we do in life, and we try to bottle our worries and our dissatisfactions with, again, who we are or what we do so that we can make it through the day. Some of us are quietly having to endure great discomforts. I can remember in my life having absoluteness in my heart at the age of 18 that I was going to be a pastor. And at the same time remembering putting in applications to like Michael's Craft Store or Chick-fil-A. And I hated the fact that I knew I was a work in progress. I hated my routine. I didn't enjoy my jobs. I liked the people. They were chill, always. Really good people at almost every job except for like one, which I think was Michael's. Sorry, Michael's. I abused the heck out of that discount for Christmas, too. So my wife is crafty. And I knew I was in a holding pattern until I was ready for God to open the door to my next step, right? So I felt the same way in my season of singleness, as Christians put it. My season when I didn't have a girlfriend or a wife, right? I didn't like my situation, but I knew that if I raced ahead and tried to make something happen, that I would settle for less than what God had for me and would most likely cause myself a lot of suffering. Tim, you got something to share with the class, buddy? Yoder's shooting a lot of looks your way. I know Yoder has a girlfriend, so it's not him being like, pray for me, bro. He's looking at you, dude. All right. We'll pray after, bro. We'll go behind the curtain and just lay hands. I got some oil back there. We'll anoint you. It's an unspoken prayer request. All right, bro. All right. It's difficult to find ourselves in places we don't like to be, right? This kind of self-care, the second definition, is trying to build ourselves up and trying to patch those hurting parts of our lives. We are trying to resist the pressure around us and the voices in our own heads that are trying to pull us down, depression, hopelessness, etc., right? This self-care isn't just rest. It's a cry in our hearts to find peace that will replace our desperation, and for faith to still or just pause our fears, right? And for strength to rise up and allow us to overcome the challenges that we're facing in our place in life. This is a much different sort of self-care. Again, this crosses over into self-help. And this version also has a danger that's unique to itself. As Christians, we must realize that the world will try to sell us answers for these things. When we're uncomfortable, the world has a lot of remedies. It's got a lot of things that can sell you to try to fill those gaps. I know a lot of very lonely single guys who they have bought the lie that Minecraft is, they have bought the lie that a girlfriend's going to fix everything for them. That as soon as they land that girlfriend, things are just solid. They have nothing else to worry about. They need nothing else. Things are just going to work out. They put all their hopes in this young woman who's like just trying to get through classes and get like B's. Like she's got other things going on. She doesn't need to take this dude's like whole like all of his trauma upon herself and deliver him, you know? She's not his savior. A lot of people can put that if we just get this job, everything's going to be easier now, and we won't have these issues, that all of my insecurities will, get blown away when I secure some sort of success for myself. The world has a lot of things that are chicken noodle soup for the soul that are going to make everything better for us. It's a new mantra or a new thought pattern or and in reality, they're not selling you answers. They're just giving you new paths to run down. So it eases it for a little bit, but then suddenly just the answers don't really make themselves known. And you can waste time trying to pacify yourself with the next greatest thing, or you can sit down and realize again that Christ laid it out for us. The difference between self-help and Christian self-help is that Christians don't get help just from ourselves. We get help when we stop ourselves and we listen to God, or we seek out what truth is in the Bible, right? So the danger in this is that we can have a desire to seek out worldly answers for spiritual issues. As Christians, we aren't simply trying to figure out how to get out of these situations. We are trying to figure out what we should be getting out of these situations. I'm going to say that again. As Christians, we should not just be looking for the fastest route out of these situations. We should be looking for what we can get out of being in those situations. God grows us through tension. He grows us through struggle. He challenges us, and that gives us the chance to grow our faith, to dig into our word, to become closer to him, right? But again, that takes God leading us. So in this kind of self-care, we cannot forget to include God. And he shouldn't be an afterthought. He should be the direction that we go running to, right? So if you're in that stage, find Christians who can speak into your life and get that encouragement. Because the answers are there. They're just really, really tough to lay a hold of sometimes, right? The Bible is like two things. Really simple to understand, but really hard to execute. Don't lie. Okay, great. Now just don't lie every day. That's really hard. Don't covet what your neighbor has. Okay, yeah, for sure. I'll just be happy with what I got. But then someone walks by with a PS5, and you're like, how did you get it? It's hard to actually execute what God tells us to do. It's easy to understand, but it's hard to execute, right? And both these forms of self-care also have just two sides to them. They have their own unique dangers, but they both have a unique danger to this thought process. They have a similar one, right? They can end up morphing from what they should be into something wrong. And a good question for us when we get to that point is to ask ourselves this. Can we go to that next slide? Is our self-care becoming self-absorbed, or is our self-care leading us to be more self-aware? The truth is, some of us are workaholics. We like to do a lot of things to the point where we'll burn ourselves out because we don't stop and think about the cost. I am a workaholic. I love work. Keeps me busy, keeps me out of trouble. I grew up as a latchkey homeschool kid, so anytime I could get out for any reason, any excuse, felt great. When you grow up in LA and there's like shootouts down the block, your parents don't let you out a whole lot. Go figure. So I got into this habit of just working, doing all the time because it was exciting. It was something new. It was something outside of what I was used to. Really positive for a young person, but it can be really toxic as you get older, as you have kids and things like that. And we'll talk more about it. But when our self-care becomes self-absorption, becomes all about us, that's when we start to talk about like unlocking your true self. Guys, we don't need our true selves. We need someone else. That's why we call on Christ. We're supposed to be conforming to a different image. We're supposed to be aliens on this planet, right? We're supposed to be a new creation. We're supposed to be in society, not of society, right? It's kind of a different thing. So when we start to believe that we hold the answers and that if we just unlock our truest selves and if we're just really authentic to ourselves, that we're somehow going to be great. No, you're just going to be that person who's like, well, I'm just going to tell you the truth. I dislike you. And you're just like a jerk to everyone. My grandmother, sorry, Grandma, if you see this ever. My grandmother called us into a room when we were young one time. She goes, I just want to let you know I love your cousins more. And I'm like, what? We were in the other room playing. There's no reason to tell us this. There's no other cousins here. It's just us. It's raining outside. We're playing I think we're playing that Windows pinball. We didn't need internet. My grandpa didn't have dial-up. Yes, I'm a little old. And she was a little behind. We were just playing that, and then when she calls us over, she just lays that on us. And she's like, I just want to be honest with you guys. Like, thanks for being authentic, Grandma. That sucks a little bit. That hurts a lot. So being authentic is not the answer for us. We need to be Christ-like. Being your truest Richie, being your truest Serena, being your truest whatever is not the answer to what you're looking for, because you're just going to become really, really in tune with like, oh, I don't like this. And then you're just going to mistreat everyone on the way out to make sure you get in a more comfortable place in life, right? It becomes a creature habit thing. It becomes a creature comfort thing. So again, if we see ourselves gravitating towards that Urban Dictionary term of self-care, coconut oil and appropriating yoga and things like that, we should be concerned with ourselves. There's some unwelcome news at the end of that, right? The truth is, again, we should just be more self-aware in this when we talk about this, because we need to take into account the fact that our mental health can suffer. It doesn't matter how good your work habits are, or like, you know, how many cups of coffee you drink, or, oh, I read my Bible today. True, but your mental health can still suffer when you're overworked, because there's principles like rest that you're not taking into account, right? And you'll allow yourself to take steps towards the wrong things rather than taking steps towards remedying them, right? So again, as everyone likes to say, self-care is not selfish. It's just being self-aware, right? I hope that it is. And for Christians, it should be. It should not be self-absorption. It should be self-awareness. It should be knowing that if I don't rest, I'm going to come unglued on this old lady who just wants to sit down and tell me her life story after church. Like, I just have to recognize that I'm not always in the greatest place for that, right? Or coming unglued during a worship practice where it's like, the drummer just can't hit the beat, and you're like, ah! Or the drummer sitting back there like, if he makes me play the same part of the same song one more time, I'm going to kill him. So, whiplash, I know. Hit her behind, again. We need to be aware of the fact that we're weak and that we will come unglued on people. We will snap at the wrong times if we don't give ourselves enough rest. If we're not in the right place, if we're not refreshed, if we are not practicing Christian self-care, we're going to end up undercutting ourselves and undercutting what God can do with us. Because you're going to be that cool person 95% of that time, and then that absolute terror, the other 5% that no one wants to be around, that everyone dreads. So when you're on that good 95% of the time, they're still like, oh, yeah, it's good to see you, bro. They're like kind of keeping distance because they know at any point that 5% could kick in. Let's go to our second big question of the evening. What should we be trying to get out of self-care? Really simple in the life of a Christian. We should be trying to put ourselves in a space to better exemplify who God is in our lives. We should be trying to put ourselves in a space where we are a better example to those around us of who Jesus is. I'm very sad to report that we actually require adequate amounts of sleep to have enough mental capacity to serve God and others. Richie's like, 4 years of lies. We actually need time to stop all of the distractions around us, turn off our phones, and really take time to thank God for what he's given us or to listen to him. We need to give ourselves these times. If we don't, we're going to cut ourselves off from God in some really key ways, and we're going to allow busyness and situations to dictate what we do and don't do. And we're going to miss out on a lot of great things that God's given us. We're not going to give thanks for them adequately and properly. Or we're going to end up just including a lot more pain than we needed to into our lives, right? And again, I love this because if you talk to people in great numbers and you ask people, how many of us when we pray ask for things we need? Every hand shoots up, right? But then you stop and think and you ask the question, well, how many of us stop to thank God when he answers those prayers? Very few of us. It's not 1 to 1. It's like 1 to 10 if we're lucky. I don't thank God enough for the things that he does in my life, but you better believe I'm really quick to ask him when I feel things that make me just, uncomfortable. They add discomfort in my life. I need to make a priority out of thanking God for the things that he's given me. Otherwise, my relationship with God is give me. Okay, cool. And then continue on. Or give me. Why aren't you giving me? Oh, my God, why aren't you giving me? Come on, hurry up, give me. And then you're like, sick. Okay, I deserve it the whole time. Thanks. It's a really, really bad place to put your relationship with God, right? I can't tell you guys that this is an easy lesson to learn, but it is necessary. Because in our lives, as stressed out as we are at times, there are little things that we didn't deserve that God gave us. Salvation is always a big one in the life of Christians, the easy answer, like fill in Jesus on any blank on the Christian Sunday school paper, and you're like, is it wrong, really? But when we sit down and look at what we have, we should be taking account of the things that we really didn't need, but God gave us anyways, right? In my life, I have a responsibility because God gave me some really awesome stuff. I, again, have a wife. I have kids. I love my family. If I don't make time for them, am I honoring God for what he's given me? Am I taking the time to say thank you for them? If I have a wife who loves me, but I make her a ministry widow and I never see her, do you think that's pleasing to God? No. If I have kids and I don't pour any time to them, I don't raise them up, I just simply kind of tow them along with my lifestyle, do you think I'm giving God adequate thanks for what he's given me in these two little boys? No. The truth is, it's like being given a really nice mansion, but keeping yourself so busy at work that you sleep in your office. It's like having that really nice mansion, but being so busy that you never do basic maintenance or house cleaning. And after a while, the roof just starts to give out and water leaks in. Squatters live in it. Rats inhabit, whatever. Do you think that's really having a thankful heart for having that wonderful gift given to you? No. If we don't make time for rest, if we don't make time for God, if we don't make time to just sit down and be in his presence and to thank him and to reconnect with him in a way deeper than just give me, we're not going to be pleasing to God, and we're not going to have the relationship with God that we're called to. We should not only be trying to make enough time for us to feel like we're meeting our physical needs, but to try to meet the spiritual ones as well. And there's another key here as well. We need God to have enough time and space in our lives to minister to us as well. It's not just pay your dues and say thank you for the right stuff and make sure that God feels special and cherished, right? That whole thing about in Zach and Cody, Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, they said, how do you lose a woman? Because they had some woman they're carrying around, they're dragging around throughout the show. And they're like, I don't know where she went. She's like, how do you lose a woman? One of them turns around and goes, you forget to cherish her. And it's played for laughs and everything like that, right? This isn't God. God's not going to leave because you don't cherish him. But at the same time, if we don't leave God any space in our lives, if we don't leave any quiet time, God also can't minister to us. He can't lead us. He can't speak to us in an adequate way, right? We have a really good picture of this in the Bible. There's someone who needed God to minister to them really, really deeply. There's this prophet named Elijah, and we've talked about him before, where he performs these wonderful miracles. God speaks to him, does this awesome thing, right? But the rulers of Israel at the time really wanted to kill him. In particular, the queen Jezebel wanted him dead. And so he runs and lays down next to a river under a bush, basically camping out homeless. And he tells God, just kill me. I'm the only righteous man left. He's absolutely convinced that what he needs is rest, but it's eternal rest. He just wants to be offed, right? And how does God answer that prayer? Anyone but Richie, because I know this is your life scripture, okay? Someone else. He lays down and sleeps, and then God provides him bread and water, and an angel sits there and makes it for him and ministers to him, and basically tells him build up your strength for what comes next. God knew his need better than he knew his need. He needed the equivalent of juice boxes and fishy crackers to get back to being a big boy. He thought things were way worse than they were. The truth was, we know earlier on in that book that there were other people serving God, but they were being hidden in caves and stuff like that. He wasn't the last guy serving God. He was just the one in front of everyone. And when you're the guy in front of everyone calling people out and no one likes you, and the other people who are under the condemnation of the kingdom don't hang out with you. How many of us watched that first episode of Obi-Wan? Awesome. Most of you will get this. I'm sorry, Brandon. I'm sorry, Brandon's friend. I didn't catch your name. What's your name? Sarah. I'm sorry, Sarah. There's this, I'm going to spoilers-ish. There's this young Jedi who's not really trained. Plug your ears, bro. Don't hear this. It's crazy. No, it doesn't change anything. This young Jedi, right? And he's untrained in the same level that, all the great Jedis were in the movies. And so he goes running around, and now we have these bad guys, these inquisitors after him. And he shows up and asks Obi-Wan for help. And Obi-Wan's scram. Please get away from me. I'm not Obi-Wan, I'm Ben. He's please, I know you. I saw you in the temple. He's it's not me. And at the end, he's just go bury the lightsaber. Forget about the Jedi stuff. Just go away. Why? Because this dude had the eye of this empire that wanted to kill all the Jedis, and he's leading them back to him. So if you're a righteous person, you're not hanging out with the person that the queen wants to kill most. So Elijah felt really isolated. It's natural. But again, he blew it out of proportion. God said you need fishy crackers and juice boxes and get up and go. For us, we do the same thing. We slip into everything is lost. Oh my God, my life is so hard. We throw pity parties for ourselves. We surround ourselves with the people who go, oh no. My family would make fun of that. They go, mijosito, oh no. And they make fun of you for being weak about that stuff. But that's what we do. We surround ourselves with the people who genuinely think that, like, oh, you're so bad off. Oh, you're so strong. Oh my, I couldn't imagine. And we go, yeah, I know. No, more, please. And we'll get ourselves to this point where we don't want to move ahead. And if we don't leave God enough space to speak to us, guess where we're going to stay? Right there. Be like, God, just kill me. It's too difficult. I can't go on. Sometimes we blow them out of proportion. Sometimes our troubles are legitimate. And they are really big. And they are really hard. And there's no way we're going to pull it off by our own strength and by our own wisdom. And it's not a pity party. It's an open acknowledgement of the fact that we're too weak. And it's just real. God can give us the strength. God can give us mercy in these situations. God can help us overcome, or God can lead us towards people who can help us, things that can help us, or remind us of things that will help us to steady ourselves for the upcoming storm. Some situations suck, and Christians want to lean on the whole thing of like, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. Yes, he does. That's nowhere in the Bible. He just doesn't give you more than you can handle with him. So if you make time for him, you'll be set. If you don't and you just listen to yourself and you stay where you are, you're sunk. God wants us to leave enough space for him. And in self-care, we need to leave enough space for him because he will anticipate needs that we cannot see. And he will anticipate the fact that we'll oftentimes focus on the wrong ones, right? Again, if we allow self-care to just evolve into shutting out all outside voices and all outside input, then we'll be robbing ourselves oftentimes of what we most need. We need to be open to talking to God during our self-care time and doing something different, if he tells us to, than what we had in mind, right? Maybe you need to shut up, eat bread, and nap. You might think as well that if you clear out a day on a calendar, it needs to be a PJ, shut the blinds, pull up Google, hear that you're a good boy kind of day. Maybe God knows instead, though, that you need to be out with a friend who needs your help that day. Maybe going, it's a self-care day. I don't want to do anything. And God's like, so go help that dude move. You're like, no, Lord. Pajamas. I want to hear him a good boy. Oftentimes in those times, though, in those situations where it was the last thing that you wanted to do, God will open up something that you needed. I've experienced this where I've helped somebody move and we've had a conversation about something really hard going on in their lives. And what should have drained me energized me because I had this conversation and they brought up something that I was struggling with at the same time. And so as I was ministering to them, I was talking through things and suddenly that really helped. And I was like, oh shoot, yeah, I forgot about this, huh? This is an easy solution to the problem that I felt was like just swallowing me whole. So even though my body wasn't resting, I was moving couches and recliners and stuff. It was weird stuff. My soul was being kind of, reignited. That fire was being rekindled. God will move in mysterious ways, in weird ways, and push us out of our comfort zone, out of our pajamas, out of watching Star Wars and playing Minecraft and things like that, because he knows we need it. And if we're sensitive enough to listen, our relationship changes. It doesn't go from I need rest, I need to God. It becomes I will listen to where you want to send me and allow you to heal me as you see fit. Because again, sometimes in the middle of moving, that friend confides that they're not doing well. Sometimes it reminds you of a truth that you haven't reminded yourself of in a hot minute. And it might be the tune-up that you needed. It might be that missing piece that you needed. God knows what we don't. And that leads us to our conclusion, guys. When do I need to engage in self-care? I've had to learn that there's a huge amount of surrender in self-care if it's done properly. Right? Self-care for a Christian who's doing it right comes with a lot of surrender. It makes it uncomfortable. Because usually we do one of two things. We will cross off every day and every free moment that we don't have to do something on our calendar. We'll go, okay, I don't have a class here, so X that one out. Saturday, X that one out. Any free moment you have in your life becomes this dead zone of, well, I'm just going to rest. Why? Because treat yourself. Feels nice to be in pajamas. Feels nice to hear Google encouraging you to watch Star Wars, right? Or the opposite will happen. I will fill my days so full that I will not stop until I'm actively on fire. Because some of us truly believe, heck yourself, we think we need to go until the wheels fall off. I don't know why we think that, but we certainly do. And this is my testimony, folks. This is my TED Talk right here. Hi, my name's Carlos. I'm a workaholic. It just feels like bee stings when you lay down and you're not doing anything. Anxiety kicks in. You start to get all sweaty and weird. Exactly. I need to rest efficiently. And again, the truth is that we need to be prayerful about our rests. We absolutely should have some checkpoints for physical rest. We need to realize that we can't go on forever. And as we get older, it gets worse. Trust me. And if you have a family, it becomes even more important to have solid times to just sit and be. But God will lead us into seasons where there are more rests and less opportunity for rests. There's time for us to rest and seek out revelation in our relationship with God, to grow in these things, to just sit and know that God is with us. And there's seasons where God leads us onto the front lines. And we're going to be mentally prepared. We're going to have to be mentally prepared for laying down suppressing fire for a long time. Because gosh dang it, people need to serve in kids ministry, even if it sucks. Or in the nursery, even if it sucks. Or during the whole VBS week, because no one else will step up. And it sucks sometimes. I personally love VBS, but still, it's very draining. There's seasons where we rest, and there's seasons where we have to go. And if we're not in concert with God, we usually run, keep going. And then right when we need to give out, VBS hits, and we're like, well, I guess that's going for another week, and we just burn ourselves out. Or we rest, and we never help with anything, and we don't grow as a person, and we never get any stronger. And so when life becomes harder, we just fold. We just give up. We just throw in the towel because we've never trained for any sort of endurance in our emotions and in our work life. We need to realize that God should be included in the timing of our lives. And we should not be denying him the right to help dictate those times for things like a promotion. And we cannot convince God that slothfulness is now just called self-care, so get with it. I will also tell you guys that we need to engage in self-care with mindfulness to the fact that we are called to be people of good reputation. There is some responsibility and duty in this. Even in our rest, we need to choose times and we need to choose ways that glorify God. There are ways to rest where we're just like flipping old ladies off at the grocery store because I need my Haagen-Dazs to get out, so stop wasting my rest day. And there's times where we can rest and be growing in truth, right? I'll give you guys another definition of self-care here, and this is one to avoid. Self-care is an umbrella term that Twitter/Tumblr kids use to excuse their poor financial decisions. Why spend money on things like rent or bills when you can buy coloring books from Whole Foods? Again, Urban Dictionary. An example of that one. I'm 6 months behind on rent. My phone got shut off and my car got repoed. I'm going to a $400 spa later this week, though, because self-care. Sometimes we need to recognize that if we're going to be down to $100 to get us through the last 2 weeks of the month, we don't need Dutch Brothers. I know, guys, blasphemy. I'm sorry, Brian. If you ever find yourself in that place, buddy, you don't even drink Dutch Brothers, I know. Dave Ramsey is just like shuddering somewhere right now. It's in here, dude. We need to recognize that sometimes God expects us to do self-care on the cheap and responsible, not on the credit card, and I'll figure it out later. You nailed it, Brian. On the spot. On the dot. Downtown. Even in rest, guys, we need to understand that God has a right way to do it. Okay? It's not shut the doors, batten down the hatchets, ignore everybody, be self-absorbed. It is not spend all your money on frivolous things, getting cookie butter from Trader Joe's and Chick-fil-A from Medford. It's good stuff, bro, but it's not every time. Is cookie butter of God? Next topic for next week. Sometimes it is just sit down, shut up, be happy with your bread, read your Bible. And we have to be open to that. Don't leave God out of the rest. Don't leave God home on vacation with your dogs in the kennel. Don't separate yourself thinking that God is what you need rest from Don't think that you can't rest while serving God, but at the same time also allow yourself to make sure to be aware of the fact that you've either given God enough room to speak to you or you've crowded him out of your life. Even with good stuff, have enough self-awareness to recognize whether or not God has enough space and time in your life for you to shut up, sit down, and listen, or whether he's going to be pushed into the back until emergencies happen. Ask yourselves, am I having a relationship with God that is also built on things like thanksgiving and not just need? Those are things that matter. So when we talk about self-care, as Christians, we should recognize that the best way to care for ourselves is to be in proper communion with God, to enjoy the things that he's given us and to give him thanks, and to also plan these times with him, to be prayerful when we sit down and when we rise up to work. God can be in the midst of your Kenobi watch party. God can be in the middle of taking an early bedtime and drinking flavored coffee. God can be in the middle of your Minecraft game. God can be in the middle of anything that you're doing. He can be incorporated. And again, rest is not just all about, well, then hit the books and start studying more. Sometimes it is just a simple creature comfort. Sometimes it is just taking a nap. If you're a parent, more often than not. But it's about making sure that you're connected to God, that you're prepared to serve God well, and that you've not robbed yourself of the tools you need, like rest, like the mental capacity, in order to serve him well when he calls upon you. Rest is not an end unto itself. Rest is a necessary tool that Christians carry so that they can serve when called upon. Say that one more time. Rest is a tool in our belts so that we are ready to serve when called upon. So if we neglect rest, we will not be ready in and out of season. If we neglect rest, we will not have the mental capacity to serve God. If we neglect rest, we will blow up and come unglued on people at the worst times and sabotage what we're supposed to be doing. If we don't rest, we will not know where God is leading us. If we do not rest, we will get to the point of burnout. And we will not be useful for a very long time if we ever recover from it. Okay? Perfect. Real quickly, guys, do we have any questions on this topic that we did not touch on? Do you guys have any testimonies about this that you're like, hey, this is something that God revealed to me that I think is helpful to the group? We go and end the live stream, guys.